Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock, let's go over the market, let's talk about what is happening in the markets, what we can expect going into really next week. Ultimately, next week should be a pretty potentially big week. Could be some market jitters that appear because on Wednesday we get the FOMC rate decision, of course. So, could get some market jitters going into that. Let's see how that goes. But all that being said, let's jump into it. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice, and I am not a financial advisor. But again, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, updates, etc., guys, well, again, I do share my thoughts, post updates with my members every single day as the market is open and trading in my private YouTube membership. Click that link down below if you wish to join. And again, for just $3 a month, you get access to all my Tesla updates, different time frame analysis, options flow, and of course, broader market updates, on things like SPYs, Qs, VIX, things like that. However, for $5 a month, you can upgrade to the tier 2 if you're interested. That also includes all my NVDA updates. Or for $7, you get the whole package. You get everything, which also includes my tier 3 stuff, such as tier 3 posts that are essentially on stocks that are not Tesla, not NVIDIA. Individual tickers that are worth something is setting up, something worth mentioning, things like that, and access to my private Discord. We have a tier 3 chat room. I do chart reviews with members every single Sunday that they request. So again, check it out. But jumping into it, Tesla closing the day up with another nice 1.73% on the day. Once again outperforming the market because like I said, Tesla is preparing for a big move. We got pretty congested, I should say, right around this area. And once we broke out, we're getting that kind of release of pressure, if you will. So, it's pretty expected. Now the question is, well, how much higher can we go? Is it topping out soon? Or, what's next, right? Ultimately, what is next? Well, again, to start things off, I have a simple rule on Tesla stock, which I'm just going to quickly reiterate once again. And I always like to reiterate this because whenever we're near the bottom or the top, that's when usually there's a lot of fear or a lot of euphoria. It's usually how these things work. So I have to make sure I reiterate my point very clearly that, again, I'm going to pause the video here. And obviously, other than times when Tesla is like completely just absolutely tanking, which, sometimes I think those things happen. Whenever the SMI is near the top, you can see, again, mark it on yourselves, again, pause the screen and take it off, check it out for yourselves. But whenever this thing is near the top, Tesla is, again, it doesn't mean it's literally at the top right here, right now, but it's more of like, hey, this is where we probably will start looking for topping signals, right? This is probably where, substantially further upside from here, unless we're in like a squeeze game or squeeze territory, which of course, there is always a chance, right? It's like a 5 to 10% of the time. So not very often, but it can happen. But unless we're in that specific kind of niche, if you will, zone, there's a good chance that we're probably closer than not to a top. And same thing when it comes to the bottom area. So again, pause it, check it out for yourselves. If you don't believe me, I'm not going to go over every single example. But with that being said, there are a few caveats to mention. Now, again, we broke out of this trend line, which is good. Tesla's bullish, etc., etc., etc. Don't get me wrong. But with that being said, we are starting to push through some very key levels. Number one, we have this sort of, massive kind of resistance zone, if you will, kind of waiting for Tesla stock pretty much right around where we are right now, maybe a little bit higher, maybe in the high 450s potentially as well, right? Maybe 458, something like that. But definitely watch out for this kind of liquidity zone waiting for the stock right around here. This could be that level to watch out for that we could get some serious rejection at, right? Maybe literally right here, right now, maybe a little bit higher. But this is number one, the area I'll watch for. Again, combine now that 4-hour SMI being near the top, that's just something worth keeping an eye on. The second thing to watch for is going to be the Fibonacci's. Now, this is going to be more towards the bearish route, right? Now, if the bears are looking for something, some kind of copium, if you will, this is what they'll be looking at for sure. Again, I always like to look at both sides of the coin, the bullish and the bearish side, right? Even though I overall lean bullish, even though I think there's a good chance Tesla does top around here into a small little pullback back to the exponential moving averages, maybe the low 430s, something like that, right? Set up a nice little bull flag and then head higher, which is my current base projection of what I believe is going to happen to the stock, which kind of lines up with potential jitters going into the FOMC, I should say the Fed rate decision on Wednesday. This is kind of what I personally expect right now. But again, one step at a time. But from the actual truly bearish perspective, the bears will definitely be looking at this as being a very large, well, not a very large, but a dead cat bounce, right? A dead cat bounce nonetheless. Why? Because, well, we've been making higher highs, higher lows until this move down here. This move down here did technically make a lower low. We broke the high, we broke the previous lower lows, and we went from making higher highs, higher lows to now what is seeming to be that first major lower low. And this could be just, off of the previous swing high up here. This could be the first also a lower high, right? So this is definitely something that is worth mentioning, right? Again, even though I overall, I lean bullish, I actually don't think the bearish play is going to, happen because the bearish play is a a substantial rejection from here and a substantial move down and ultimately making a lower low. That's like the bear case scenario, right? Which again, there is a possibility. I can't fully ignore that, right? I don't like fully ignoring. If I'm bearish, I don't like fully ignoring the bullish possibility. If I'm bullish, I don't like fully ignoring the bearish possibility. It's always good to keep that in the back of your mind as just a, so that you're ready for it mentally, if that makes sense, right? So if it does happen, you're not freaking out, you're not going crazy, like, oh my God, what's going on? You were ready for that. You were prepared for that. You were ready in advance. And that's important to understand. But this is that bearish thought process right here where, we get a substantial rejection pretty much right around here, maybe a little bit higher, a couple more dollars or so higher, sure, but not too much higher from here. And that bearish rejection will bring Tesla all the way back down to about $360 per share. Again, this is that bear case. The only way I would personally start getting worried about this is if we get obviously a rejection from here, but the retracement ends up being a little too deep. And essentially we start losing this trend line. That's the only way I'll start getting worried about the bear case actually coming to fruition, I should say, right? But as long as Tesla, pretty much does not lose this very large rising channel that we are in, I don't think the bear case is going to play out, right? Kind of like when it was here. It could have lost it here, but we never actually lost that, right? So naturally, we went back up, right? Kind of the same idea, but if we had any retracement back down once again, as long as we do not lose this rising channel, this very large rising channel, I don't think the bear case is going to play out, but it is still worth keeping in mind as a what-if scenario, if that makes sense, because there is validity behind it, right? There's, structurally, it's not something that is just made up, right? Structurally, yeah, there is potential of it. We can't fully ignore that possibility. Just it is what it is. But I don't believe that's going to happen yet. Again, you would have to lose this bottom of the rising channel for me to start getting worried about the bear case playing out down to about 360, 370, whatever the case, right? Again, but regardless of the path we take, whether it's the actual bear case path or it's just the bull case path into a small rejection, into a small kind of bull flaggy rejection, retracement, whatever, I still personally believe that there is a good chance that Tesla is getting close to some level of a top around this general vicinity, the mid to high 450s now, which is where those green Fibonacci sit. So that's going to be something I'll be watching for pretty closely, right? Let's see how that plays out in the days to come. And I do think it should be days to come. I'll be surprised if it takes more than a week, to be completely honest, especially with the rate cut decision next week. So if we do reject, again, my bull case scenario is we come back down right back to roughly where the exponential moving averages are sitting. Best case scenario is about the low 430s, not too much lower than that. Maybe easing our way down into the low 420s if we happen to get a bit of a deeper retracement. I don't think we'll even go that low personally. As of right now, my base projection is about the low to maybe mid 430s. And then from there, we head higher for kind of like a Santa Claus rally. That's kind of my base case, I guess, if you will, projection right now. But again, we'll take it one step at a time. But again, I do have that rule on Tesla stock where, again, unless I'm just entering some quick little, small, short-ish swing trades, whenever the SMI is up here, in terms of entering a longer-term swing trade, yeah, I'm not really looking for that anymore, right? I only look for that when the SMI is towards the bottom of the spectrum, not when it's at the top, because usually when it's at the top, we push up a little bit higher here, but you can see we didn't really do a whole lot of much after that, and we actually retraced a decent amount of it, right? But when we got near the bottom, we got pretty close to the bottom, and then we got near the top, SMI's near the top, we started getting, toppy, right? Again, it can take a few candles. It could sometimes be just a couple candles. Sometimes it'll take like a week's worth of candles. Sometimes even closer to almost 2 weeks of candles, though usually it's about a week. But it's just worth mentioning that, again, more often than not, this SMI on Tesla stock, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. But combine that with the other confluence I mentioned with, this kind of zone of resistance waiting for here with that sort of the Fibonacci's, this is an area to watch out for. So watch out for this area, guys, in my opinion. If there's a place to top out, around here is my opinion where it can happen. Now, if things change, I'll let you know, but that's kind of what I expect right now, into a small rejection, into a push higher to close the year out is my current expectation. Weekly, let's take a look very quick at the weekly. The weekly looks pretty good still. We still have the stochastic on the weekly looking pretty solid, right? Everything's looking pretty damn good. I think overall the structure on Tesla, like on the weekly time frame, I should say, still looks pretty bullish, guys. It's hard for me to look at this and not be overwhelmingly and be overwhelmingly bearish. It looks pretty good, honestly, all things considered. Even if we get that small retracement, it still looks pretty good. Again, the only way I start getting worried, like you saw on the daily with that rising channel support, if we lose that, which also is roughly where this weekly one is sitting as well. You can see here, losing this as well might make me start getting worried. That's when I start thinking, deeper retracement back down to at least the 360-ish region is most likely coming next. But other than that, even the weekly doesn't look too bad. But with that being said, we are entering some potential weekly resistance. We've gotten rejections from these areas many times in the past. Now we're getting our way right back into them. So it'll be important to see how the price reacts tomorrow, and especially next week with the rate cut decision around this kind of pretty important area, right? So again, let's see how this plays out. But I continue overall leaning bullish. I still do overall lean bullish. I do still think Tesla will more likely than not ultimately go higher. It's just maybe not necessarily right away. So that's how I see it. But jumping into SPY and the Qs really quickly, right? The market had a bit of volatility today, right? We had a deep retracement and then most of it got bought back up, and SPY is still dancing around this sort of kind of resistance-ish zone. I actually kind of do like the fact that SPY is kind of turning this area back into support now, which has potential of bullishness, I will admit. So let's see how that plays out, right? There is some decent signs here actually, right? I like the fact that the bulls actually stepped in pretty nicely towards the end of the day. You can see a lot of kind of buying pressure came in towards the end of the day, pushing the market up. Not too shabby, right? Arguably even taking this range over here and turning it into support now, and bouncing off of that now as opposed to resistance like these candles right over here. Not too shabby, but I still would prefer to see price get back above about the 685 to 686-ish region, because this is an area that still rejected price a few times in the past, and we're pretty much still right at that resistance zone. But overall, though, regardless of what happens on this sort of short-term games, who cares about that? What really matters is the market overall bullish? The answer is absolutely yes. The market is undoubtedly bullish. Now, even if we get a small dip, even if we get those kind of jitters, like I said, going into that rate cut decision next Wednesday, I still believe the bulls are completely in control, right? And any dips from here back down to about, let's say, 677, 678, yeah, I just view those, unless something crazy happens, which I'll let you know if I see something like that. I do continue viewing any of those dips as just pullbacks that the bulls will most likely continue buying up, and most likely we continue overall heading higher into year end. So again, take that as you will. I do think the bulls are still definitely in control overall. The Qs looking a little bit on the weaker end, arguably, right? The Qs you can see here still having a lot of area resistance around this area here, sort of in the mid 620s. We got rejections here, we got rejections here. We're kind of stalling out once again in this exact same spot. So the Qs, it's kind of the same thing as SPY. Needs that little extra push, needs to get back above the mid 620s. 627 or higher would be pretty good to see, and holding above that would be a good sign to see. But again, even with the Qs, same idea. Even if we do reject from here, which I think is still a very real possibility, maybe a small kind of rising wedge setting up, get a rejection, that's fine. I still view the bulls in control as well of the Qs in the broader market. So again, same with the Qs. That's like I said with SPY. Any dip to about 612, 613, 614, something like that. Yeah, I still view it as bullish retracements. I still view it as the bulls more likely than not stepping in and bidding up the market and overall sending things nicely higher. What else is there? That's the main way I look at the market right now. In terms of options flow, take a quick look at options flow, see what's happening to Tesla stock here. Yeah, pretty mixed flow throughout the day. So we had a lot of bullish flow here. Then we had some bear stepping in around here. And then towards the end of the day, back to bullish mode as well. So the bulls definitely looking to step in once again, which explains that sort of end of day push we had going into the last, half hour or so in the markets. So let's see how Friday ends up playing out for Tesla stock. Again, I really wouldn't be surprised to see maybe a little bit push higher on Tesla. Again, just watch for these Fibonacci's. These are important, right? Tesla, we need to start closing daily candles pretty much above 680, really. If we start closing daily candles above 680, this would put a major dent into these Fibonacci's, to be completely honest with you, which would be extra bullish, by the way. But, watch for this range tomorrow, 655 to about 660, really. Just watch for that $5 range tomorrow. That is going to be something that's going to be, most likely tested, but again, good place to also potentially reject from as well. But overall, yeah, definitely more bullish than bearish on the flow. So the bulls are definitely looking to continue stepping in. But yeah, that's all I got for you. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace.